Hello guys, welcome to Ben 10 What If. So in this video, we will see what if all of Ben's villains teamed up to destroy him. If you enjoy these kinds of stories, don't forget to show us some love by hitting the like button and subscribing to the channel. Your support means the world to us. Now, let's start the story. Chapter 1, the opening gambit. Ben Tennyson stretched out on his couch, controller in hand, completely demolishing Kevin in the new Sumo Slammers Ultra game they'd been playing for hours. Dude, you're cheating. No way you memorized that combo already, Kevin grumbled, tossing his controller onto the coffee table as his character got flattened for the 5th time in a row. Not my fault you're slow, Ben grinned, popping another chili fry into his mouth. Some of us have actual skills beyond punching things and absorbing metal. It was their first real downtime in weeks. No alien invasions, no interdimensional threats, just a lazy Saturday with junk food and video games. The kind of normal 18-year-old stuff that had become increasingly rare since Ben first found the Omnitrix 8 years ago. Gwen walked in from the kitchen, laptop tucked under her arm. If you two are done with your very mature competition, we should probably think about heading to Grandpa Max's for dinner. He's been texting me about some new recipe he wants us to try. Please tell me it doesn't involve tentacles this time, Ben groaned, though his complaint lacked any real annoyance. Max's cooking had improved significantly since his early attempts at introducing the kids to alien cuisine. Kevin stood up, stretching. I'm starving anyway. The piercing wail of Ben's plumber badge cut him off. All three of them froze. That specific alarm tone meant a level red emergency. Ben grabbed his badge off the table, Gwen and Kevin instantly alert beside him. Ben Tennyson responding, he said, all traces of the laid-back teenager vanishing. Rook's face appeared on the small holographic display, his normally composed expression tight with urgency. Ben, we have multiple situations developing simultaneously across Bellwood. The plumbers are stretched thin responding. Details. Ben was already moving toward the door, Gwen and Kevin right behind him. Fistrick and his crew are raiding Tekadon weapons storage. Sunder was spotted near the university power grid. The Forever Knights appear to be attacking the downtown museum, and Rook paused, looking at something off-screen. I have just received reports of Dr. Onimo releasing mutated creatures at Bellwood Zoo. 4 separate incidents at once? Gwen frowned. That's not a coincidence. My thoughts exactly, Rook nodded. I am currently en route to intercept Fistrick. Ben was already calculating. Kevin, take Sunder. Gwen, handle the Forever Knights. I'll deal with Onimo before those creatures spread through the city. Rook's got Fistrick covered. On it, Kevin said, keys already in hand as they rushed outside to his car. Be careful, Ben called out as they separated. Something feels off about this. He activated the Omnitrix, cycling through his aliens before slamming down on the interface. Green light flashed across his body as muscle and sinew reformed into the familiar shape of XLR-8. Time to run wild, he muttered, and vanished in a blur of motion toward Bellwood Zoo. XLR-8 shot through the streets at speeds that turned the world into streaks of color. The transformation felt good, familiar and energizing. Even after all these years, that first rush of power never got old. He skidded to a halt at the zoo's entrance. The scene was chaos, screaming visitors fleeing in all directions while security guards tried vainly to maintain order. Through the gates, he spotted what looked like an oversized mutated lion with 6 legs and scorpion-like pincer tails chasing panicked tourists. Subtle as always, Onimo, XLR-8 muttered, zipping past the fleeing crowd. He spotted 3 more mutated animals, a gorilla with 4 arms, what might have been a snake-eagle hybrid, and something that looked like a cross between a rhino and a crocodile. Each wore one of Onimo's signature mind control helmets. Need something with more punch. Ben slapped the Omnitrix symbol on his chest, transforming in a flash to Humongosaur. Hey, Frankenfurries, he shouted, voice deep and resonant in his dinosaur form. Your petting zoo days are over. The mutant lion charged, moving faster than something that size should be able to. Humongousaur braced himself, catching the creature's jaws between his massive hands when it leapt. The impact pushed him back several feet, his clawed toes digging furrows in the concrete. "Nice kitty," he grunted, wrestling the beast to the ground. "Where's your crazy owner hiding?" A familiar cackle answered his question. "Ben Tennyson. Right on schedule." Dr. Onimo swooped down on what appeared to be a mutated vulture, his ridiculous helmet gleaming in the sunlight. The mad scientist looked even more unhinged than usual, his red eyes wild with excitement. "What's the matter, Onimo? Pet store wouldn't let you adopt?" Humongousaur quipped, tossing the lion aside and growing several feet taller to face the new threat. Always with the juvenile humor, Onimo sneered. "But today is different, Tennyson. Today is the beginning of your end." He raised a remote control. "My pets are just the appetizer." He pressed a button, and all four mutant creatures converged on Ben at once. Humongousaur swung at the approaching gorilla, connecting solidly and sending it flying back into a concession stand. The rhino crocodile charged, its horn catching him in the side and driving him into the wall of the reptile house. "Okay, new approach," Ben muttered, slapping the Omnitrix again. Swampfire emerged from the green flash, immediately sending streams of fire at the snake-eagle hybrid swooping down from above. The creature screeched, veering away from the flames. "What's your game, Onimo?" Swampfire called out, generating a wall of plants to trap the charging rhino croc. "You haven't pulled something this coordinated in years." Onimo's laughter took on a different tone, less maniacal, more satisfied. "Haven't you figured it out yet, boy? I'm just one piece of the puzzle today." Swampfire hesitated, and that moment of distraction cost him. The six-legged lion pounced from his blind spot, knocking him to the ground. He grappled with the beast, its multiple limbs making it difficult to gain leverage. "What puzzle?" he demanded, finally managing to kick the creature off. "You'll see soon enough," Onimo said, checking a device on his wrist that didn't look like his usual tech. "In fact, my part is almost complete." That's when Ben noticed the pattern of movement. The animals weren't just attacking randomly, they were herding visitors toward the exits while simultaneously driving him deeper into the zoo. And more importantly, they were avoiding damage to a specific building, the zoo's research center. "Whatever you're after in that lab, you're not getting it," Swampfire declared, sending vines bursting from the ground to ensnare all four creatures at once. Onimo's expression shifted to annoyance. "Always interfering. No matter. I've kept you occupied long enough." A massive explosion rocked the research center, sending debris flying. Swampfire instinctively created a dense wall of vegetation to shield the nearby civilians from the blast. Through the smoke, Ben spotted Onimo's vulture flying away, the scientist clutching what looked like canisters of genetic material. But before he could pursue, his plumber badge blared again. "Ben." Gwen's voice was tight with tension. The Forever Knights were a diversion. "They've hit Plumber HQ." "What?" "That's impossible. The location is compromised," she cut him off. "And they knew exactly where our defenses were weakest. Ben, they have access codes." Cold realization washed over him. Onimo was stalling me. Whatever they took from the research lab was just a bonus. It's worse. Kevin just called, Sunder wasn't after the power grid. He hit the quantum containment facility, where we were holding Egregor's artifacts. Swampfire punched the ground in frustration. "They're coordinating. All of them." Ben, Rook's voice joined the conversation, sounding winded. "Fistrix's team had plumber-grade tactical gear. They knew our formations and had countermeasures prepared." Ben transformed back to human, mind racing. "Everyone regroup at my place. Now." 15 minutes later, Ben paced across his living room as Kevin nursed a nasty gash on his arm and Gwen tried to establish contact with plumber bases worldwide. "This is no coincidence," Ben said. Onimo, Forever Knights, Sunder, Fistrick, they've never worked together before. Someone's organizing them. And they knew exactly where to hit us, Kevin added, wincing as he applied antiseptic. Sunder went straight for those artifacts like he had a shopping list. Rook arrived, his proto-armor scuffed and his proto-tool damaged. I have more troubling news. Communications with other plumber bases are being jammed or intercepted. We cannot be certain of any information coming through official channels. What about Grandpa Max? Ben asked. Gwen looked up from her laptop, worry etched on her face. I can't reach him. His badge is offline. Ben felt his stomach tighten. Try his personal phone. Already did. No answer. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. Whatever was happening, it was massive and meticulously planned. We need to get to Plumber HQ, Ben decided. If our enemies have our security protocols, the floor beneath them shuddered. Then again, stronger, the whole house trembling. Earthquake? Kevin suggested, already on his feet. Ben moved to the window, pulling back the curtain. His blood froze. Guys? We've got company. Outside, hovering above the street, was Vilgax's massive ship, casting a shadow over the entire neighborhood. Smaller craft were deploying around it, ships Ben recognized from a dozen different enemies he'd faced over the years. They know where I live, he said quietly. Ben Tennyson. Vilgax's voice boomed through external speakers, loud enough to rattle the windows. Your time has come. There will be no escape, no clever last-minute salvation. Today, you face not one enemy, but all who have sworn to destroy you. Ben's phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number showed a video feed of Grandpa Max, unconscious and restrained, inside what looked like a cell. Scatter. Ben shouted as the first energy blast hit the side of the house. The team moved with practiced efficiency born from years of fighting together. Gwen threw up a mana shield as they ran for the back door, deflecting debris as part of the roof collapsed. We need a plan, Rook said as they sprinted through the backyard. Working on it, Ben replied, activating the Omnitrix again. Priority 1 is getting clear and finding out what happened to Grandpa Max. He transformed into Jetray, grabbing Kevin while Gwen created a platform of mana for herself and Rook. Head for the abandoned plumber outpost in the quarry, Ben instructed. It's off the grid. They barely made it 2 blocks before a sonic blast caught Jetray in mid-air, sending him and Kevin tumbling to the ground. Ben recognized the attack instantly, Thunderpig, one of the bounty hunters he'd faced years ago. Thought you could fly away, Tennyson, the pig-like alien grunted, hefting his sonic cannon. Everyone's got eyes on you now. Ben transformed again, this time into Chromastone, absorbing the next sonic blast and redirecting it at his attacker. Kevin, go with the others. I'll catch up. Not happening, Kevin replied, absorbing the concrete from the sidewalk and armoring up. We stick together. A mechanical whirring sound came from above as 6 drones, Tekadon design but with custom modifications, descended around them. From the left, Sunder appeared on his glider, energy axe glowing ominously. This is getting crowded, Chromastone remarked, back-to-back with Kevin. Gwen and Rook landed beside them, forming a defensive circle. Those drones have plumber tracking. Tech integrated, Rook observed. They can follow your Omnitrix signature. Then I'll give them something to track, Ben decided, slapping the Omnitrix symbol again. Echo appeared, immediately splitting into 5 duplicates. Split up, the duplicates called in unison. Create confusion. The duplicates scattered in different directions, each one setting off the tracking systems. Gwen caught on quickly. Clever, she said, creating illusion duplicates of her own with magic. Let's add to the chaos. Kevin grinned, picking up Thunderpig's dropped sonic cannon. I like this plan. The street erupted into mayhem as Echo duplicates, mana constructs, and the team themselves scattered in all directions. The drones, programmed to track Omnitrix signatures, pursued different Echo copies, while Sunder and Thunderpig shouted conflicting orders at each other. One Echo, the original, ducked into an alley, rejoined with another duplicate, and transformed again into Big Chill, turning intangible and flying through buildings toward the quarry rendezvous point. Ben to team, he spoke into his badge. Status check. Clear for now, Gwen responded. Kevin's with me. We're taking the tunnel system. I am encountering resistance, Rook reported, the sound of his proto-tool firing in the background. But I will manage. Big Chill phased through another building, emerging on the other side to see a shocking sight: the entire city was under attack. Multiple villain craft circled overhead, plumber vehicles engaged in dogfights with them. Downtown, he could see fires burning and what looked like Vulcanus's minions battling police forces. This is bigger than us, he murmured. They're hitting the whole city. His badge beeped again, this time with an automated plumber emergency broadcast: attention all plumber personnel. Multiple bases under simultaneous attack. Communications compromised. Initiating protocol Obsidian Shield. Obsidian Shield was the last resort protocol: complete communications blackout, isolation of bases, and assumption that any incoming transmissions could be enemy disinformation. Big Chill dove lower, narrowly avoiding a patrol of alien flyers that hadn't been seen on Earth in years. Someone had reunited the hybrids' old forces. He reached the quarry 20 minutes later, taking a circuitous route to shake any pursuit, and phased through the rock face into the hidden entrance of the abandoned outpost. Inside, Kevin and Gwen had already arrived and were powering up the old systems. Any word from Rook? Ben asked, transforming back to human. Kevin shook his head. Nothing since his last transmission. I can sense he's alive, Gwen said, eyes glowing briefly. But I can't pinpoint his location. There's too much interference, magical and technological. Ben ran a hand through his hair in frustration. What about Grandpa Max? That video came from somewhere in the null void, Kevin said, pointing to a computer analysis running on the ancient console. I've been trying to narrow it down, but whoever sent it covered their tracks. We're on our own, Ben concluded. Cut off from the plumbers, Grandpa Max captured, and every enemy I've ever faced apparently working together. He leaned against the wall, the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. How is this even possible? Half these guys hate each other as much as they hate me. Gwen pulled up footage from security cameras around the city. It's systematic. Look, they're targeting specific infrastructure. Communications first, then plumber facilities, then civilian leadership. This isn't random revenge, Kevin agreed. This is an invasion plan. But who could coordinate all of them? Ben wondered. Vilgax isn't exactly a team player, and none of the others have the pull to organize something this big. A crackle of electricity announced Rook's arrival as he stumbled through the hidden door, his armor smoking in places. Rook. Ben hurried to help his partner. What happened? Kyber, Rook grimaced, allowing himself to be guided to a chair. He and his pet were waiting in ambush. I managed to evade them, but not without difficulty. Kyber too? Ben frowned. That's another piece of the puzzle. Rook looked up sharply. There is more, Ben. I overheard communications between Kyber and someone called the Director. They mentioned a Phase 2 beginning soon and something about the list. What list? Gwen asked. I do not know, but Kyber seemed pleased about whatever names were on it. Kevin's console beeped. Guys, I'm getting a transmission breaking through the jamming. He stopped, eyes widening. It's broadcasting everywhere. The screen flickered, and Vilgax's face appeared. Behind him stood a rogues gallery of Ben's enemies: Albedo, Charmcaster, the Vreedle brothers, Zomboso, even Hex and Darkstar. People of Earth, Vilgax began, his voice carrying the same menace it had since Ben was 10 years old. Your protectors have failed you. The plumbers are scattered, their bases fallen. Your hero, Ben Tennyson, has abandoned you to save himself. The camera panned to show scenes of destruction across Bellwood, carefully edited to make it look like Ben had fled rather than fought back. For too long, this child has interfered in matters beyond his understanding, Vilgax continued. His reckless actions have endangered countless worlds, including your own. Today, we end his destructive influence. The screen split to show a list of names, plumbers, allies, and civilians connected to Ben. Next to each name was a location. These are Tennyson's accomplices, Vilgax declared. Each will answer for supporting his chaotic crusade. Some are already in custody. The feed cut to images of captured plumbers, including Grandpa Max, Magister Patellidae, and others Ben recognized from Plumber HQ. As for Tennyson himself, Vilgax's voice hardened, "Hear me well, wielder of the Omnitrix. You have 6 hours to surrender yourself and your device at the coordinates being transmitted to your plumber badge. Failure to comply will result in consequences for those you claim to protect, beginning with your family." The transmission cut off, leaving the room in stunned silence. "That's their play," Ben said quietly. "They're using everyone I care about as leverage. They've been planning this for months," Gwen realized. "The coordination, the intelligence gathering, this isn't opportunistic. This is calculated. And the whole, Ben abandoned the city, narrative," Kevin added. "They're trying to turn people against you." Ben paced the small confines of the outpost, mind racing. "We need to countermove. Fast. If I can access the deep plumber channels, I might be able to coordinate with any unit still." "Operational," Rook suggested. "Do it," Ben nodded. "Gwen, can you use your magic to locate anyone on that list? We need to get to them before Vilgax's goons do." "I'll try, but that kind of wide-range tracking will take time and energy." "Kevin, work on reinforcing this place. If they tracked us to my house, they might find us here too." Kevin nodded grimly. "On it." Ben checked the Omnitrix, making sure it was fully charged. "I'm going to scout topside, see what we're really dealing with." "Ben, that's exactly what they want," Gwen warned. "You'll be exposed." "Not if I'm careful," he replied, selecting Ghost Freak on the Omnitrix dial. "I need to see the bigger picture." The transformation washed over him, leaving him in the unsettling but useful form of the Ectoneurite. "I'll be back in 30 minutes. If I'm not, assume I've been compromised and relocate." Without waiting for further objections, Ghost Freak phased through the ceiling, emerging into the darkening sky above the quarry. The view from above was grim. Bellwood was partially under siege, certain areas cordoned off by what looked like incursion troops, while others remained untouched. Strategic points were clearly under villain control: the power plant, communications towers, transportation hubs. But oddly, civilian areas seemed largely unharmed. This wasn't about destruction, it was about control. Ghost Freak drifted toward downtown, keeping high enough to avoid detection. Near the center of the city, a makeshift command post had been established in Bellwood Plaza. Through windows, Ben could see various enemies he'd faced over the years working together with surprising coordination. He moved closer, turning invisible as he phased partway through the roof to eavesdrop. Inside, Siphon was directing operations, surrounded by holographic displays showing different sectors of the city. Fistrick, Dr. Onimo, and several Forever Knights stood around a large table. The Tennyson residence was empty, as expected, Siphon was saying. But the tracking data confirms he's still in Bellwood. "We should just level the whole city," Fistrick argued. "Flush him out." Silence. The commanding voice made everyone in the room stiffen. Albedo stepped forward, his red-eyed clone body a mirror image of Ben's own. The director was explicit: minimal civilian casualties. "This isn't about destruction, it's about isolation." Phase 2 requires precision, Albedo continued. We've cut off his official support network. Now we sever his emotional ties. The list targets are being acquired as we speak. What about his team? A Forever Knight asked. Separated and monitored, Albedo said confidently. The probability matrices suggest a 94% likelihood they'll attempt to rescue the prisoners rather than flee the area. And the Null Void containment facility? Preparations are complete. Once we have Tennyson, the final phase begins. Ghost Freak had heard enough. He carefully withdrew, mind churning with the new information. Their plan was more sophisticated than he'd initially thought, and they seemed to be anticipating his moves before he made them. He was about to head back to the outpost when movement caught his eye, a small convoy of vehicles moving purposefully through side streets. He recognized the lead truck, it belonged to the Vriedel brothers. Following at a distance, Ghost Freak watched the convoy stop outside a familiar building, Julie's house. Cold fear shot through him. Julie was on the list. The Vriedel brothers exited their vehicle, accompanied by several DN aliens. They approached the house with weapons drawn. Ghost Freak wanted to intervene immediately, but forced himself to think strategically. If he revealed himself here, he'd blow any advantage of secrecy they had left. But he couldn't let them take Julie. The decision was made for him when a pink flash came from inside the house, followed by the sound of breaking glass. One of the DN aliens went flying backward across the lawn. Ghost Freak swooped closer. Through the window, he could see Julie wielding what looked like a plumber blaster, with Ship partially merged with her as makeshift armor, just like old times. "Get away from my house, you creeps," she shouted, firing another blast that sent the Vriedels diving for cover. Pride and worry battled in Ben's mind. Julie was holding her own, but she was outnumbered. Octagon. "She's got galvanic mechamorph support," one of the Vriedels called out. "We need backup." That decided it. Ben transformed again, this time into Diamond Head, and dropped from above directly into the middle of the group. "Sorry guys, party's cancelled," he announced, sending crystal shards flying in all directions, pinning several DN aliens to nearby vehicles. "It's Tennyson." Octagon Vriedel shouted. "Call it in." Diamond Head created a crystal wall between the Vriedels and their communications device, then charged forward, morphing his hands into blades. "Julie," he called out. "Time to go." She appeared at the door, Ship still partially covering her in battle mode. "Ben. What's happening?" "These guys just showed up and, no time to explain," he cut her off, knocking down the last DN alien with a crystal hammer fist. "Everyone I know is in danger. You're on their list." More vehicles were turning onto the street, reinforcements arriving faster than Ben had anticipated. "Ship, full-form transport mode," Julie commanded. The small mechamorph engulfed her completely before expanding into a sleek vehicle form. Diamond Head jumped aboard as Ship took off, crystal shards raining down behind them to slow their pursuers. "Where are we going?" Julie asked, her voice coming through Ship's communication system. "Abandoned plumber outpost in the quarry," Ben said, transforming back to human as they gained altitude. "The others are there." "Ben, what is going on?" "The city's in chaos, there are aliens everywhere, and my phone's been blowing up with reports about you abandoning Bellwood." Short version. "Every villain I've ever faced has teamed up to take me down. They've captured Grandpa Max and other plumbers, they're going after everyone I care about, and they're trying to turn the public against me." Ship dodged energy blasts from pursuing craft, executing evasive maneuvers that would make a fighter pilot jealous. "That's actually pretty concise," Julie remarked. "But why now? And how are they all working together? Last I checked, most of your enemies couldn't stand each other." "That's what we're trying to figure out," Ben replied, checking the Omnitrix's status. "Someone's coordinating them, someone they're calling the Director. But we don't know who that is yet." Julie guided Ship into a series of sharp turns through the buildings, temporarily losing their pursuers. So what's the plan? Still working on that part, Ben admitted. First priority is getting to the people on their target list before they do. You were on it, along with my parents, Gwen's family, and others. Julie's voice hardened. My parents are out of town, thankfully. But we need to warn everyone else. Conventional communications are being monitored or jammed. We're basically in information blackout. Ship sensors beeped urgently. We've got more company, Julie warned. Looks like Krob and 6-6. Great, the bounty hunter reunion continues, Ben muttered. Can Ship outrun them? Not with the energy drain from combat mode. We need to lose them another way. Ben studied the city layout below them. Head for the river tunnels. The old floodway system runs right past the quarry. Ship banked hard, diving toward the Bellwood River while transforming into a more streamlined configuration. Behind them, Krob and 6-6 were gaining. They're within weapons range. Julie called out. Ben made a split-second decision and hit the Omnitrix again. Big Chill emerged, phases through Ship's hull, and turned to face their pursuers. Keep going, he called to Julie. I'll catch up. Big Chill exhaled a massive freezing cloud, catching both bounty hunters in the blast. Ice formed instantly around their propulsion systems, sending them spiraling toward an empty parking lot below. That'll cool them off, he muttered, banking around to follow Ship's path toward the river. He caught up just as Ship was disappearing into a large drainage tunnel. Once inside, Ben transformed back to human, conserving the Omnitrix's power. Nice moves back there, Julie said as Ship reverted to battle mode around her. Just like old times. Minus the army of supervillains hunting us down, Ben pointed out. Ship navigated the tunnel network with surprising precision, making turns seemingly at random to throw off any tracking. I've missed this, you know, Julie said after a moment. Not the danger part, but being part of the team. You were always part of the team, Ben replied. Even when we weren't, you know. Together. She finished for him. Yeah, I know. But college and tennis tournaments don't exactly mesh well with saving the world on a weekly basis. Ben smiled despite the circumstances. You seem to be keeping up your alien fighting skills just fine. Ship and I practice, she shrugged. Never know when the world's going to need saving. The tunnel opened into a larger chamber, an old flood control junction. Ship came to a stop, systems humming as he conducted sensor sweeps. We're clear for now, Julie reported. But I'm picking up a lot of movement topside. They're setting up a search grid. Ben checked his plumber badge. We're about half a mile from the outpost. We'll have to go on foot from here, less detectable. Ship detached from Julie, returning to his smaller form and jumping excitedly around her feet. Someone's happy to see you, she smiled. Good to see you too, buddy, Ben patted the small mechamorph. We could use your help. They made their way through maintenance tunnels, eventually reaching a rusted ladder that led up to the quarry. Ben climbed first, cautiously pushing open the access hatch and scanning the area before signaling Julie to follow. The quarry looked abandoned, just as it should, but Ben noticed fresh vehicle tracks in the dirt. Someone had been here recently, someone other than his team. Stay alert, he whispered to Julie. I don't like this. They crept toward the hidden entrance, Ship morphing into a small shield on Julie's arm as a precaution. The outpost door was partially open, not how Ben had left it. Gwen. Kevin. Rook. Ben called softly as they approached. No response. Drawing a deep breath, Ben activated the Omnitrix again, this time selecting Swampfire. Green light washed over him as he transformed. Stay behind me, he instructed Julie, pushing the door open fully. The interior of the outpost was a disaster, consoles smashed, equipment scattered, signs of a fierce struggle everywhere. No, Ben whispered, dread building as he surveyed the damage. No, no, no. Julie picked up a torn piece of fabric, part of Gwen's sleeve, singed at the edges. Ben. Swampfire moved deeper into the outpost, searching for any sign of his friends. On the main console, still partially functional, a message had been left displayed, Phase 2 complete. All targets acquired. Awaiting your surrender, Tennyson. Below the message was a set of coordinates, different from the ones Vilgax had mentioned in his broadcast, and a countdown timer showing just under 5 hours remaining. Ben slammed his fist into the wall, plant matter burning with his anger. They knew. They knew we'd come here. But how? Julie asked, Ship churning anxiously on her shoulder. Because they've been 3 steps ahead this entire time, Ben realized, transforming back to human. They're predicting our moves before we make them. He sank into a chair, momentarily overwhelmed. Everyone was captured, Grandpa Max, Gwen, Kevin, Rook. All the plumbers. Maybe even his parents by now. Everyone he cared about was in enemy hands, being used as leverage to force his surrender. Julie placed a hand on his shoulder. Ben, I know that look. Don't blame yourself. No one could have anticipated this level of coordination from your enemies. I should have, he said quietly. That's my job, expecting the unexpected. No, your job is being a hero, she corrected firmly. And heroes don't give up, even when things look impossible. Ben took a deep breath, centered himself, and stood up. You're right. And we're not beaten yet. He moved to the damaged console, trying to extract any information that might help. They left these coordinates deliberately. It's obviously a trap. But it might also be where they're keeping everyone, Julie pointed out. Exactly. They want me to go in alone, desperate, ready to surrender. Ben's eyes narrowed in determination. So we'll give them what they want, just not the way they expect. Julie raised an eyebrow. You have a plan? The beginnings of one, Ben admitted. But I'll need Ship's help. And yours. Whatever you need, Julie said without hesitation. Ship beeped in agreement, bouncing energetically. Ben pulled up the coordinates on the console, cross-referencing them with the plumber database fragments still accessible. This location, it's the old Forever Night Castle Museum. They converted it years ago after we shut down their operation. Appropriate staging ground for your enemies, Julie noted. Symbolic. And tactical, Ben added. The place has ancient catacombs underneath, perfect for holding prisoners. But it also has modern security systems from the museum conversion. He started gathering the few remaining functional devices from around the outpost, a damaged plumber shield generator, parts from Rook's spare prototool, and a communications module. What's the actual plan? Julie asked, helping him collect the equipment. Ben's expression was deadly serious. They've taken everything from me to force me to surrender the Omnitrix. So that's exactly what I'm going to do. You can't be serious. Oh, I'm very serious, Ben said, a determined glint in his eye. I'm going to walk right through the front door and give them exactly what they're asking for. And how is that not suicide? Ben smiled grimly. Because while they're all focused on me and the Omnitrix, you and Ship are going to free the prisoners. Julie considered this a diversion. But they'll be expecting something like that. They'll be expecting me to have a team of aliens ready to attack, Ben corrected. They won't be looking for one person with a mechamorph sneaking in the back way. He pulled up schematics of the castle on the console. See these old ventilation shafts? They connect to the catacombs. Too small for most people to navigate, but perfect for Ship, Julie finished. He could guide me through, then help bypass security. Exactly. While I'm keeping every villain in my rogues gallery busy with the surrender they've been waiting for, you find everyone and get them out. Julie studied the plan. It could work. But Ben, what about you? Once you surrender the Omnitrix, I'll handle it, he assured her. I've been in tough spots before. Not like this, she argued. Never with all of them at once, while you're voluntarily giving up your powers. Ben looked down at the Omnitrix, his constant companion for 8 years. Julie, I've relied on this watch for so long that sometimes I forget who I was before it. Maybe it's time I remembered that Ben Tennyson is more than just the aliens he turns into. She met his gaze, concern evident in her eyes. I know that. I've always known that. But they will kill you, Ben. Not right away, he countered. Vilgax, Albedo, Kyber, they'll all want to gloat first. Evil villain monologues are practically guaranteed. That should buy you enough time. And if it doesn't? Ben's expression softened. Then at least the people I care about will be safe. Julie was quiet for a moment, then stepped forward and hugged him tightly. I'm not losing you today, Tennyson. So make sure your part of the plan includes staying alive until I can rescue you too. Ben returned the embrace. Yes, ma'am. They spent the next hour preparing, Ben modifying what equipment remained functional while Julie and Ship practiced quick transformations and security bypass techniques. Here, Ben said finally, handing Julie a small device. Emergency teleporter beacon. It's only got enough power for one use, so save it for when you've freed everyone. Julie tucked it securely into her pocket. What's our timing? I'll head to the coordinates in 1 hour. That gives you time to get into position at the rear access point we identified. Ben pointed to the castle schematic. Wait for my signal, the villains will be making enough noise when I arrive that you should be able to tell when to move. And the signal to activate the teleporter? You'll know it when you see it, Ben said cryptically. Trust me. As Julie and Ship prepared to leave, Ben caught her hand. Hey, thank you. For still believing in me after all this time. She squeezed his hand. Always have, always will. Just don't do anything stupidly heroic until I get there. No promises, he grinned, some of his old confidence returning. After Julie and Ship departed, Ben sat alone in the damaged outpost, looking at the Omnitrix. He cycled through alien forms thoughtfully, memories of countless battles flooding back. One more time, he murmured to the device. Let's make it count. He transformed into XLR-8 for rapid travel, but took a deliberately visible route toward the castle coordinates. Let them see him coming. Let them prepare their welcome. The more attention on him, the better chance Julie had of succeeding. The castle loomed ahead, illuminated against the night sky by spotlights. Various villain ships hovered nearby, and Ben could make out guards from multiple enemy factions patrolling the perimeter. A proper supervillain convention, all in his honor. He stopped just outside the main gate, returning to human form. Cameras swiveled to track him. Weapons powered up. I'm here, he called out. Just like you wanted. The massive doors creaked open. Siphon stepped out, flanked by 7-7 and Krob. Benjamin Tennyson, Siphon's oily voice carried across the courtyard. Right on schedule. Where are my friends and family? Ben demanded, standing his ground. Safe. For now. Siphon gestured to the open doors. My masters await you inside. Ben walked forward, head held high despite the armed escorts that fell in beside him. As they entered the castle's great hall, he surveyed the gathered crowd, nearly every villain he'd ever faced, from minor nuisances to world-threatening menaces, all in one room, united against him. At the far end, seated on what could only be described as makeshift thrones, were Vilgax, Albedo, and Kyber. Standing slightly apart from them was a hooded figure Ben didn't recognize, possibly the mysterious director. The guest of honor. Arrives, Vilgax announced, his voice rumbling through the hall. At last. Ben met his oldest enemy's gaze unflinchingly. I'm here. Now show me that everyone is safe. Albedo snapped his fingers, and large screens descended from the ceiling, showing live feeds from cells containing all the captured plumbers and Ben's loved ones, his parents, Grandpa Max, Gwen, Kevin, Rook, and others. Satisfied? Albedo asked smugly. Let them go, and the Omnitrix is yours, Ben stated firmly. Vilgax laughed. You are hardly in a position to negotiate, Tennyson. Neither are you, Ben countered. You need me to remove the Omnitrix willingly. Otherwise, its self-defense protocols will trigger. It was a bluff, mostly, but one based on enough truth to be convincing. The assembled villains murmured amongst themselves. The hooded figure stepped forward. You will surrender the Omnitrix first. Then, your allies will be released, one by one. Ben studied the mysterious figure, trying to place the voice. It seemed familiar, yet somehow wrong, like hearing a recording played at slightly the wrong speed. And I'm supposed to trust you? Ben asked. You have no choice, the figure replied simply. Ben made a show of considering, buying time while hopefully allowing Julie to get into position. How do I know this isn't just a ploy to get the Omnitrix, after which you'll kill everyone anyway? Vilgax growled impatiently. Enough delays. Surrender the device or watch your loved ones suffer. On the screens, Ben saw guards enter the cells, weapons trained on the prisoners. His heart tightened, but he forced himself to remain outwardly calm. Fine, he said, raising his wrist. You win. The assembled villains leaned forward in anticipation as Ben activated the Omnitrix's command sequence. The circular interface projected a holographic display. Omnitrix, initiate removal protocol, authorization Ben Tennyson, code 10. The device beeped in acknowledgement, the band loosening around his wrist. This was it, the moment of truth. 8 years of being a hero, about to end with a surrender. But not a defeat. Never that. As Ben prepared to remove the watch, a commotion erupted on the prisoner feed screens. Several guards were suddenly knocked unconscious, cell doors began opening, and a familiar green-black blur moved from room to room. What is happening? Vilgax roared, standing from his throne. The hooded figure whirled toward the screens. The prisoners. Security teams, respond. Ben smiled. Looks like I'm not the only one with a plan today. Chaos erupted in the Great Hall as villains rushed to address the prison break. Ben used the distraction to activate the Omnitrix one final time, transforming into feedback. Sorry to crash the party, he announced, absorbing energy from the nearest power conduits and blasting it back at the crowd of enemies. The screens showed the prisoners fighting back, led by Gwen, Kevin, and Rook, with Ship and Julie providing support. They were making their way toward the teleporter extraction point. Stop them, the hooded figure commanded, throwing back their hood to reveal, Professor Paradox. Ben gasped in shock. But it wasn't quite the Paradox he knew. This version's eyes glowed with an unnatural purple light, and temporal energy crackled around him like lightning. Not exactly, the Paradox lookalike smiled coldly. Let's just say I'm from a timeline where things went differently. Time Walker. Vilgax spat. You promised Tennyson would surrender. And he did, corrupted Paradox replied calmly. I never promised his allies wouldn't attempt a rescue. Probability matrices always accounted for this possibility. Ben fired another energy blast, clearing a path toward the exit. Whatever timeline you're from, you made a serious mistake bringing everyone here in one place. The villains were regrouping, surrounding Ben from all sides. Kyber whistled sharply, summoning his predator pet, while Albedo activated his own Omnitrix knockoff. You cannot hope to defeat all of us, Tennyson, Vilgax declared. Drawing his sword. Even with your friends free, you are outnumbered and outmatched. Ben saw on the screens that the prisoners had reached the extraction point. Julie looked directly at a camera and nodded, the signal they were ready. Maybe, Ben agreed, charging up for his biggest energy discharge yet. But I'm not trying to defeat you today. He released the stored energy in a massive omnidirectional blast, temporarily blinding everyone in the room. In the confusion, he slapped the Omnitrix symbol, transforming into clockwork. Time to even the odds, he declared, focusing his temporal powers directly at corrupted Paradox. The time-manipulating alien's gears spun furiously as Ben opened a temporal rift, not to escape, but to disrupt whatever technology corrupted Paradox was using to coordinate the villain alliance. No, the Time Walker shouted, reaching out with his own temporal powers to counter Ben's. You don't understand what you're doing. I understand perfectly, Clockwork replied, the strain evident in his voice. You've been using time tech to predict our moves, coordinate the attacks, stay 3 steps ahead. Let's see how your plan works with that advantage gone. The temporal energies collided spectacularly, creating a cascading disruption that spread throughout the castle. The screens showing the prisoners flickered and died as the power fluctuated wildly. Corrupted Paradox stumbled backward. You fool! The temporal anchor, Ben didn't wait to hear the rest. He activated the recall signal for Julie's teleporter, then transformed again, this time into Heat Blast, and unleashed a massive fireball at the ceiling, collapsing part of the structure to slow the villain's pursuit. The teleporter activated, pulling Heat Blast across space in a flash of light. He materialized in the forest clearing where the evacuation point had been established, immediately surrounded by the freed prisoners. Ben! Gwen rushed forward, throwing her arms around him as he transformed back to human. Cutting it a little close there, Tennyson, Kevin remarked, though his relieved grin took the sting out of the words. Grandpa Max approached, looking worse for wear but very much alive. Good work, Ben. Though next time, maybe include getting captured a little earlier in the planning process. Ben laughed, the tension of the day finally breaking. Wasn't exactly Plan A, Grandpa. Rook was already organizing the freed plumbers into defensive positions around the clearing. We should move quickly. Our enemies will regroup soon. They're already regrouping, Ben said, suddenly serious. And we have bigger problems than we thought. The one coordinating all this, it's some version of Professor Paradox. A corrupted one. Paradox. Gwen's eyes widened. That's impossible. He wouldn't, not our Paradox, Ben clarified. He said he was from a different timeline. And he's been using time technology to predict our moves, stay ahead of us. That explains how they knew our protocols, our safe houses, everything, Max mused. They could see all possible futures and plan accordingly. Julie joined them, ship perched on her shoulder. But you disrupted that technology, right? That's what that temporal energy explosion was? Ben nodded. I think so. But it's temporary at best. We need to regroup, figure out our next move before they recover. First things first, Max decided. We need a secure location. The Mount Rushmore base might still be operational, it's off most of the grids. As the freed prisoners began moving through the forest toward extraction vehicles Rook had secured, Ben pulled Julie aside. Thank you, he said simply. You were amazing in there. She smiled. What happened to ship and I will create a distraction while you surrender. Plans change, Ben shrugged. Especially when you realize there are better options than giving up. Julie's expression softened. I'm glad you found a better option than sacrificing yourself. Yeah, well, Ben grinned, I had this voice in my head that sounded suspiciously like you, telling me to find another way. Their moment was interrupted by Gwen calling for Ben. We've got movement. Multiple hostiles converging on our position. Ben activated the Omnitrix again, cycling through his aliens. Time to move. The real fight's just getting started. In the sky above, villain ships were already appearing, searching for the escaped prisoners. But Ben felt something he hadn't felt since this crisis began, hope. They had survived the first assault. They had disrupted the enemy's advantage. And most importantly, they were together again. Round 2, Ben muttered, selecting Jetray on the Omnitrix dial. Let's see how they do when we're ready for them. Green light flashed as he transformed, ready to lead the counterattack. Whatever came next, corrupted Time Walkers, alien warlords, or the entire Rogues Gallery, Ben Tennyson and his team would face it together. The assembled villains had wanted to destroy him by taking everything away. Instead, they'd reminded him of exactly what he was fighting for. Chapter 2, Nowhere to Run. The emergency plumber transport rumbled through the night, packed with freed prisoners and resistance fighters. Ben sat near the front, studying a holographic map of the devastation spreading across Bellwood. Red dots representing villain-controlled territories multiplied by the minute. They're regrouping fast, he muttered to Gwen, who was using her magic to mask their energy signature from enemy scanners. Too fast, she agreed, pink mana flowing from her fingertips. Even without their time tech advantage, they're still coordinating better than any villains we've ever faced. Max approached from the cockpit, his weathered face grim in the dim light. Mount Rushmore base is compromised. We intercepted Chatter. Vulcanus and his mining crew breached the lower levels an hour ago. So where are we going? Kevin asked, hand hovering over the navigation controls. Old Plumber fallback site, Max replied. Built during the Limax infiltration scare, before you kids were even born. So off-grid it doesn't appear in any database, not even the ones our enemies stole. Ben raised an eyebrow. If it's not in any database, how do you know about it? Max's mouth curved into a slight smile. Some things you keep in your head, not on computers. Your grandma and I set it up ourselves. Of course you did, Ben chuckled despite the situation. The transport veered sharply, diving into a narrow canyon before entering what appeared to be an abandoned mine shaft. Ancient support beams groaned as they passed beneath them. This place looks like it's gonna collapse if someone sneezes, Kevin remarked, eyeing the ceiling warily. That's the point, Max replied. Perfect camouflage. The tunnel widened suddenly into a massive underground cavern. As lights flickered on, Ben whistled in appreciation. The fallback site was actually a fully equipped base, smaller than typical plumber facilities but packed with essential technology and supplies. Grandpa, you've been holding out on us, Gwen said, clearly impressed. Your grandmother always said to keep an ace up your sleeve, Max replied, a hint of sadness crossing his face at the memory. This place runs on geothermal energy, completely self-contained. We should be safe here while we regroup. As the transport settled onto a landing pad, the freed plumbers and allies disembarked, immediately setting up defensive positions and medical stations. The sight gave Ben hope. They weren't beaten yet, not by a long shot. Rook approached, tablet in hand. I have compiled what intelligence we gathered during our captivity. It appears the villains have divided into operational cells, each focusing on different aspects of their plan. Smart, Ben commented. Keeps them from tripping over each other. Indeed. Vilgax, Albedo, and Kyber form the command structure. Siphon coordinates logistics. The Forever Knights and Incursions control ground forces. Dr. Onimo and Dr. Psychoboss lead research and development. And Corrupted Paradox oversees it all, Ben finished. Feeding them information about potential futures, helping them stay ahead of us. Which explains why my divination spells haven't been working, Gwen added. He's creating temporal interference. Max gathered the core team around a central holodeble. Our priority now is intelligence gathering. We need to understand exactly what we're up against and what their endgame is. I might have something on that, Julie said, stepping forward. Ship transformed from his backpack configuration and projected data onto the table. While we were freeing everyone, Ship copied fragments of their network. Most of it's encrypted, but we found this. The projection showed a complex schematic, circular in design, with what looked like the null void at its center. Kevin leaned closer. That's a dimensional oscillator array. Serious tech. Way beyond what most of these jokers could build. What's it for? Ben asked, though a sinking feeling told him he already knew. Based on the configuration, Rook analyzed, it appears designed to manipulate the barriers between dimensions, specifically targeting the null void. They're trying to collapse the dimensional walls, Gwen realized. Merge the null void with our reality. The implication hit everyone at once. The null void, prison to thousands of the most dangerous criminals in the galaxy, many put there by Ben himself. That's their endgame, Ben said quietly. Not just destroying me, releasing every villain I've ever put away. Turning Earth into ground zero for the worst prison break in history. But why would Paradox, even a corrupted version, want that? Julie wondered. It goes against everything he stands for. Before anyone could answer, alarms blared throughout the base. Max rushed to a console. Proximity alert. Something's breaching the outer perimeter. Security feeds showed a strange distortion moving through the entrance tunnel, like reality itself was warping. It's him, Ben realized. Corrupted Paradox found us. Impossible, Max insisted. This place isn't in any system he could access, even with time tech. The distortion reached the main doors, which began to glow with an eerie purple light. Metal groaned as temporal energy warped the structure. Everyone to battle stations. Max ordered. Evacuate non-combat personnel to the secondary chambers. Ben activated the Omnitrix, cycling through alien options. I'll buy you time. Ben, you can't face him alone, Gwen protested. I'm not planning to, he replied, settling on an alien and slamming down the dial. Clockwork's mechanical body materialized, gears whirring as Ben channeled temporal energy. Fight fire with fire. The doors buckled inward, but instead of the expected assault, a single figure stumbled through. Not corrupted Paradox, but the genuine article, Professor Paradox, looking severely weakened, his clothing torn and timepiece cracked. Oh my, the Time Walker gasped. Cutting it rather close this time, I'm afraid. Professor. Gwen rushed forward to help him. What happened to you? Temporal prison, Paradox managed, allowing himself to be guided to a chair. My counterpart trapped me in a recursive time loop. Most unpleasant. Ben transformed back to human, approaching cautiously. How do we know you're the real Paradox? The Time Walker smiled weakly. Quite right to be suspicious, young Benjamin. When you were 10 years old, I once brought you a smoothie from 5 years in the future, chilled nano-mango, if I recall. You said it tasted like socks. Ben relaxed slightly, that wasn't information found in any database. How did you escape? I didn't, Paradox replied. When you disrupted his temporal technology at the castle, it created a momentary weakness in my prison. Just enough for me to send a psychic impression to Gwendolyn, guiding you to my location. Gwen nodded. I felt something guiding us when we were choosing escape routes. I thought it was just intuition. How did he find us here? Max demanded. He didn't, Paradox explained. I did. My counterpart is still attempting to trace your locations, you have perhaps 2 hours before he succeeds. Kevin crossed his arms. So we've got a real time traveler and an evil twin running around. Great. Not quite a twin, Paradox corrected. More like a possible future. The base fell silent as everyone processed this revelation. A future version of you? Ben asked. How is that possible? I thought you existed outside normal time. I do, Paradox confirmed. But even I have a timeline, Benjamin. In one potential future, after witnessing countless atrocities across the multiverse, I broke. Decided the only solution was controlled destruction and rebuilding. So he's you if you went crazy and turned evil, Kevin summarized bluntly. Crude but not inaccurate, Paradox conceded. He believes the current multiverse is fundamentally flawed and must be purged. The null-void merger is merely step 1, creating enough chaos to weaken the dimensional barriers everywhere. Then why target me specifically? Ben asked. Because in every timeline where his plan fails, you are the common factor, Paradox explained. You, Benjamin Tennyson, are the linchpin holding the multiverse together, though you never asked for such responsibility. The weight of those words settled heavily on Ben's shoulders. He'd known he was important in the cosmic scale, the Quantumania had made that clear years ago, but this was different. So what's our move? He asked finally. How do we stop you? First, we must disrupt his alliance, Paradox said. My counterpart is using temporal knowledge to manipulate your enemies, promising each exactly what they desire. Vilgax believes he'll get the Omnitrix. Albedo believes he'll regain his Galvan form. The others have similar delusions. But he's lying to all of them, Gwen realized. Precisely. His only goal is dimensional collapse. Once achieved, most of his allies will be as doomed as everyone else. Max stepped forward. Then we need to break his coalition. Turn his allies against him. Yes, but we have a more immediate problem, Paradox gestured to his damaged timepiece. Without my full temporal abilities, I cannot counter his predictions. And he'll soon locate this facility. Ben paced the room, mind racing. We need to go on the offensive before he finds us. Hit them before they hit us. Agreed, Rook said. But our resources are limited. We must choose our targets carefully. Max activated the holodeble, displaying a map of Bellwood with known enemy positions. Intelligence first. We need to understand their operation better before we can effectively counterattack. I might have a way, Kevin suggested reluctantly. I've still got contacts in the Undertown black market. If anyone knows what tech they're moving or what they're building, it'll be the smugglers and arms dealers. Too risky, Max objected. Undertown is crawling with hostiles now. Which makes it perfect, Kevin argued. No one will look twice at another criminal skulking around. Gwen touched his arm, concern evident. Kevin, if they realize who you are, they won't, he assured her. I know how to blend in down there. Did it for years, remember? Ben considered the option. He's right, Grandpa. We need that intel, and Kevin's our best shot at getting it. Max reluctantly nodded. Fine, but you don't go alone. Take Rook as backup, he can disguise himself. I should go too, Ben decided. 3 sets of eyes are better than 2. Absolutely not, Max said firmly. You're their primary target, Ben. Every scanner in Bellwood is looking for your Omnitrix signature. Which is why I won't be using it, Ben countered, raising his wrist. Omnitrix, stealth mode. The device beeped in acknowledgement, the familiar green glow dimming as it reconfigured into a more subdued black and gray wristband. Azimuth added this feature last year, Ben explained. Dampens the energy signature. As long as I don't transform, they can't track it. It's still too dangerous, Max insisted. Everything we do from here on out is dangerous, Grandpa, Ben replied evenly. But I can't hide while everyone else takes the risks. That's not who I am. Max recognized the determined look on his grandson's face, the same one he'd seen since Ben was 10 years old. He sighed. All right. But the first sign of trouble, you extract. That's an order. Yes, sir, Ben agreed, though everyone knew how seriously he took orders when lives were at stake. While the infiltration team prepared, Paradox pulled Ben aside. There's something else you should know, Benjamin, the Time Walker said quietly. My counterpart didn't just target you because you're a threat to his plans. What do you mean? Paradox's expression grew somber. He blames you personally for what he becomes. In his timeline, a choice you made, or will make, leads directly to the events that corrupt him. Ben felt a chill run through him. What choice? That, I cannot say. Foreknowledge of such magnitude could be catastrophic. Paradox placed a hand on Ben's shoulder. But know this, When the moment comes, trust your instincts. They've rarely led you astray. With those cryptic words hanging in the air, Ben rejoined Kevin and Rook. The three of them dressed in nondescript clothes that wouldn't attract attention in Undertown's shadier districts. Kevin had already created fake IDs and cover stories. Remember, he instructed as they prepared to leave, let me do the talking. These people spook easy, and they can smell Plummer from a mile away. I have extensively studied criminal behavioral patterns, Rook assured him, attempting to slouch in a way he thought looked casual but actually made him look like he had back pain. Kevin winced. Yeah, maybe just don't talk at all, furball. Ben suppressed a smile. Even facing apocalyptic threats, some things never changed. Julie approached as they finished gearing up. Be careful out there, she said, focusing particularly on Ben. Always am, he replied with a confidence he didn't entirely feel. That's demonstrably false, she countered with a small smile. But come back anyway, okay? Ship and I are going to help Gwen analyze the data we stole. I'll hold you to that, Ben promised. The infiltration team departed through a secondary exit, a narrow tunnel that emerged in a different part of the canyon, away from the main entrance. Kevin's rebuilt car waited under camouflage netting, modified to run silent for covert operations. No weapon signatures, no power readings, Kevin explained as they climbed in. To any scanner, we're just background noise. The drive to Undertown's hidden entrance took them through back roads and dry river beds, avoiding main thoroughfares where villain patrols might spot them. The city above looked like a war zone, parts dark from power outages, others too bright from fires or villain encampments. They've taken over completely, Ben murmured, watching a Forever night patrol pass on a nearby ridge. Not completely, Kevin corrected. There's always shadows to hide in. Always cracks in the system. They reached an abandoned gas station on the outskirts of Bellwood. Kevin drove straight through what appeared to be a solid wall, actually a holographic projection, revealing a sloping tunnel that led deep underground. Welcome to the back door, he announced as they descended into darkness. No security checks, no scanners. How do you know about this entrance? Rook questioned. Kevin's expression darkened slightly. Let's just say I needed quick exits in my less reputable days. The tunnel opened into the sprawling underground complex of Undertown, a hidden city beneath Bellwood where aliens of all species lived and traded away from human eyes. Usually vibrant and chaotic, the atmosphere now felt tense and subdued. Many shops were closed, streets less crowded. Martial law, Kevin observed, parking the car in a hidden alcove. Vilgax's troops must be enforcing curfews. They moved through the streets, keeping their heads down. Ben was struck by propaganda posters plastered on walls, crude images depicting him as a threat, with slogans like "Report Tennyson sightings" and "Safety through vigilance." They're turning everyone against you, Rook noted quietly. Standard tactic, Kevin replied. Easier to control a population if they're policing themselves. They approached a particularly dingy section of Undertown, where the buildings leaned precariously and the clientele looked progressively more dangerous. Kevin led them to a bar with a flickering sign that read, "The Void's Edge," in several alien languages. My contact hangs out here, he explained in a low voice. Vulcanus. Former arms dealer, current information broker. He knows everything that moves through Undertown. Can we trust him? Ben asked. Kevin snorted. Absolutely not. But his information's usually good if you pay enough. Inside, the bar was dimly lit and filled with smoke from various alien intoxicants. Species Ben didn't even recognize hunched over drinks or engaged in hushed conversations. Several glanced up as they entered, then quickly looked away, not out of fear, but practiced disinterest. Kevin spotted his contact in a corner booth, a salamander-like alien with orange skin and multiple eyes. He guided them over, sliding into the seat across from Vulcanus with practiced ease. Kevin Levin, the alien rasped. Heard you were captured. Or dead. Or both. Rumors of my demise, etc., Kevin replied smoothly. Need information, Vulcanus. The alien's eyes shifted to Ben and Rook, narrowing suspiciously. New crew. They look soft. They're solid, Kevin assured him. And we're paying well. Vulcanus leaned forward. What kind of information costs well these days? The Coalition, Kevin said simply. What they're building. What they're moving. Where? The alien leaned back, suddenly nervous. That's dangerous territory, Levin. Those guys aren't playing games. They executed Argit yesterday just for suggesting their security checkpoints were inefficient. Ben stiffened at the mention of Argit, not exactly a friend, but a familiar face nonetheless. Kevin's expression hardened. All the more reason to know what they're up to, Kevin pressed. Double the usual rate. Vulcanus glanced around the bar, then gestured them closer. They've been moving specialized equipment through here. Components I've never seen before. Null void containment tech, dimensional stabilizers, chronotron capacitors. Where to? Rook asked, speaking for the first time. The alien gave him a suspicious look before answering. Central facility under construction at the old mining complex outside town. But that's not the interesting part. What is? Kevin prompted. They're fighting among themselves, Vulcanus revealed, voice dropping even lower. Vilgax wants control of the operation. Albedo thinks he's being sidelined. The Time Walker keeps changing plans without telling the others. Ben exchanged a meaningful glance with his companions. Paradox had been right, the alliance was already showing cracks. Anything else? Kevin pressed. Vulcanus hesitated. There's a shipment coming tonight. Big one. Some kind of power source they need for the final phase. Coming through the East Tunnel, heavy security. How heavy? Incursion elite guards, forever knights, and something new, soldiers with tech I've never seen. Purple energy weapons that don't just kill, they erase. Temporal disruptors, Rook whispered. Corrupted Paradox's technology. Kevin slid payment across the table, tangible goods rather than traceable currency. Thanks for the intel. Stay low, Vulcanus. The alien scooped up the offering. Word of advice, Levin. Whatever you're planning, don't. These guys aren't just trying to take over, they want to tear everything down. They left the bar, processing the information as they moved through increasingly deserted streets. A power source, Ben mused. That must be the missing piece for their dimensional oscillator. If we intercept that shipment, Rook suggested, we could significantly delay their plans. Kevin nodded. And create more friction in their alliance when they start blaming each other for the failure. Two birds, one stone, Ben agreed. Let's get back to base and plan the ambush. They were halfway to their hidden vehicle when Ben noticed something unsettling, the streets had emptied completely. No civilians, no vendors, no patrols. Just eerie silence. Guys, he said quietly. Something's wrong. The attack came from all directions at once, energy beams cutting through the air as armored figures descended from rooftops and emerged from side streets. Incursion soldiers, forever knights, and the mysterious troops with purple weapons Vulcanus had mentioned. Ambush! Rook shouted, drawing his proto-tool from its concealed position. So much for stealth, Ben muttered, already activating the Omnitrix. Stealth mode disengaged as the device returned to its standard configuration, the familiar green glow illuminating the darkened street. Ben Tennyson identified, a Forever Knight captain announced. All units converge. Ben slammed down on the Omnitrix dial, transforming into Diamond Head just as the first wave of energy blasts reached them. Crystal shields erupted from his arms, deflecting the attacks while Kevin absorbed the metal from a nearby pipe and Rook returned fire with precision shots. We're outnumbered. Rook called out, diving behind cover as temporal disruptor fire vaporized the wall behind him. Story of my life, Diamond Head replied, sending crystal shards flying toward their attackers. Kevin, can we reach the car? Kevin ducked another blast. Not through this crossfire. More enemies poured into the street, cutting off escape routes. The situation deteriorated rapidly as specialized weapons began targeting Diamond Head specifically, acid throwers that melted crystal, sonic emitters that cracked his form. They came prepared for each of your aliens, Rook realized, backing toward Ben as the circle of enemies tightened. Then let's give them something new, Ben decided, slapping the Omnitrix symbol on his chest. The green flash faded to reveal Gutrot, one of Ben's less frequently used transformations. Gas vents opened across his body, releasing dense clouds of chemicals that quickly filled the street. Can't target what you can't see, he explained, the specialized compounds creating both visual cover and disorienting their attackers. Under the cover of the chemical cloud, the three fought their way toward a side alley, enemies coughing and disoriented around them. They'd almost reached relative safety when a temporal disruptor blast cut through the haze, striking Kevin directly. Kevin! Ben shouted, watching in horror as his friend began to fade from reality, purple energy coursing over his body. Ben, Kevin gasped, reaching out before disappearing entirely. No! Ben rushed forward, but Rook grabbed him, pulling him into the alley as more disruptor blasts followed. We cannot help him if we are erased too, Rook insisted, though his voice was tight with emotion. Together they fled deeper into Undertown's maze-like passages, pursued by enemy forces. Ben transformed again, this time into XLR-8, grabbing Rook and racing through the tunnels at supersonic speed. We need to get back to base, Ben said, voice shaking with anger and grief. Warn the others. Ben, Rook began cautiously. That temporal weapon, it may not have killed Kevin. It looked more like a displacement effect. Meaning what? He might have been sent somewhere else in time, not erased completely. Ben clung to that hope as they emerged from a different Undertown exit, far from where they'd entered. XLR-8's speed allowed them to evade pursuit long enough to reach the canyon where the secret base was hidden. But as they approached, Ben skidded to a halt. Smoke rose from the hidden entrance, and the distinct shapes of villain aircraft hovered above. No, he whispered. They found the base. Transforming back to human, Ben and Rook crept to an observation point where they could see the situation clearly. The entrance had been blown open, and enemies swarmed the facility. Prisoners were being marched out, plumbers and allies with their hands bound. How did they find it so quickly? Rook wondered. Ben's fists clenched. We led them right to it. They must have tracked us from Undertown. But your Omnitrix was in stealth mode until the ambush, Rook pointed out. It wasn't the Omnitrix, Ben realized with growing horror. It was us. The whole information exchange was a setup. Vulcanus betrayed us, or was working for them all along. They watched helplessly as their allies were loaded onto transport ships. Ben spotted Gwen, her hands bound with power-dampening cuffs, and Max being roughly handled by Incursion guards. I don't see Julie or Paradox, Rook noted, scanning the prisoners. Maybe they escaped, Ben said hopefully. Or. He couldn't finish the thought. The possibility that they had suffered Kevin's fate, or worse, was too painful to voice. We need to retreat and reassess, Rook said pragmatically, though Ben could hear the strain in his voice. Just the two of us cannot free them in our current state. Ben wanted to argue, wanted to transform into the biggest, most powerful alien in his arsenal and tear through the enemy forces. But he knew Rook was right. A frontal assault would only get them captured too. Where do we go? He asked instead. Every base, every safe house, they know them all. Rook considered. Not quite all. There is one place so obvious they might not think to look. Where? Your school. Ben stared at him. Bellwood High. That's your brilliant hideout. Consider the psychology, Rook explained. They expect us to seek remote locations, fortified positions. A public school building is the opposite of their search parameters. That's actually not bad thinking, Ben admitted. Plus, the science lab has equipment we might be able to use. They moved carefully through the wilderness, avoiding roads and open spaces where they might be spotted. As night fell completely, they approached Bellwood High School from the athletic fields, keeping to shadows. The school was deserted, evidence of hasty evacuation visible in abandoned backpacks and scattered papers. Ben led the way to a side entrance, using the Omnitrix in flashlight mode to navigate the darkened hallways. "The science wing is this way," he whispered, pointing down a corridor. They set up a makeshift base in the advanced physics lab, the most equipped room with the fewest windows. Rook immediately began converting classroom equipment into communications devices, while Ben tried to process the devastating losses they'd suffered in a single day. "I should have known it was a trap," he said quietly, staring at the Omnitrix. "I led them right to our people." "You could not have known," Rook replied without looking up from his work. "None of us suspected Vulcanus was compromised. That's the problem. We keep reacting, always one step behind. Meanwhile, they're picking us off one by one." Ben paced the classroom. "First Kevin, then the others." "Ben," Rook said firmly, "self-recrimination will not help Kevin or free our friends. We must focus on what we can do now." Ben took a deep breath, centering himself. "You're right. What's the plan?" "First, we determine if anyone else escaped. Then we gather intelligence on where our allies are being held. Finally, we disrupt the power source shipment Vulcanus mentioned." "You think that intel was real?" Ben asked skeptically. "The best deceptions contain truth," Rook pointed out. "They wanted us to know about the shipment so we would return to base and lead them there. But that does not mean the shipment itself is fictional." Ben nodded slowly. "So we hit the shipment, deny them the power source, and use the chaos to locate our friends." "Precisely." A soft noise from the hallway interrupted their planning. Both tensed, ready for confrontation, as footsteps approached the lab door. Rook raised his proto-tool while Ben prepared to activate the Omnitrix. The door creaked open, revealing Julie, with Ship wrapped protectively around her shoulders. "There you are," she sighed in relief. "Ship's been tracking your Omnitrix energy signature for hours." "Julie." Ben rushed forward, embracing her tightly. "You made it out. What about the others?" "Paradox." Her expression turned grim as she pulled away. "Paradox created a diversion, opened a small time portal that drew most of the attention. Told me to find you while he led them away. But everyone else, they took them all, Ben." "And Kevin?" Rook asked hesitantly. Julie shook her head. "I don't know. He wasn't with you." Ben explained what had happened in Undertown, including Kevin's encounter with the temporal weapon. "So he might still be alive," Julie reasoned. "Just displaced in time." "That's what I believe," Rook agreed. "But without Professor Paradox, we have no way to track or retrieve him." "We'll find a way," Ben insisted. "Right now, we need to focus on stopping that shipment and locating our friends." Julie unfolded a tablet computer she'd been carrying. "I might be able to help with that. When the attack came, Ship and I were analyzing the data we stole. We managed to download parts of their prisoner processing protocols." "You know where they're taking everyone?" Ben asked eagerly. "Not exactly, but I know how to find out." She activated the tablet, displaying complex routing codes. Each prisoner type has a specific destination marker. Plumbers go to one facility, family members to another, powered individuals somewhere else. Rook examined the data. "This is extremely valuable. With these codes, we could potentially hack into their transport communications." "Exactly," Julie confirmed. "We just need access to their network." Ben's mind raced with possibilities. The shipment. Whatever they're transporting will be high priority, meaning command-level communications. If we intercept the shipment, Rook continued, following Ben's logic, we could potentially capture their command communications equipment. 2 birds, 1 stone again, Ben nodded. 3 birds, Julie corrected. Stop the shipment, gain intelligence, and create division in their alliance. They spent the next few hours planning their attack, using the lab equipment to analyze what little information they had about the shipment route. Ship provided valuable assistance, transforming parts of himself into technological components they needed. As dawn approached, they had a workable plan. The shipment would pass through the east tunnel of Undertown at approximately 0600 hours, heavily guarded but potentially vulnerable at one specific choke point. We'll only get one shot at this, Ben warned. If we miss the shipment, their dimensional oscillator goes online, and the null void starts merging with our reality. Then we will not miss, Rook said with quiet determination. They gathered what makeshift equipment they could carry and prepared to move out. Ben paused at the classroom door, looking back at the physics formulas still written on the blackboard, the abandoned student projects, the normal life that seemed impossibly distant now. We're going to fix this, he promised quietly. All of it. Julie placed a hand on his shoulder. I know. That's what you do. The eastern access tunnel to Undertown was the largest of the underground pathways, originally an old subway extension abandoned decades ago. Its high ceiling and wide passageway made it ideal for transporting large cargo, which also made it perfect for their ambush. They positioned themselves on a maintenance catwalk 30 feet above the tunnel floor, hidden in shadows. Ship had transformed into a sensor array, monitoring approaching signals while remaining undetectable himself. Anything? Ben whispered. Julie checked Ship's readings. Not yet. But they should be here soon if the timetable's accurate. Rook adjusted his proto-tool, which he'd modified with components from the school's physics lab. Remember, our priority is the command vehicle. The power source is secondary. I know the plan, Ben assured him. Hit fast, grab the intel, disable the shipment, get out. Tension built as they waited in silence, minutes stretching like hours. Finally, Ship emitted a soft beeping sound. Movement, Julie translated. Large convoy, approaching from the north entrance. Ben peered into the darkness of the tunnel. Soon, he could make out lights, the lead vehicles of the convoy emerging into view. First came scout units on hoverbikes, then armored transports containing troops. In the middle, a massive floating platform carried what appeared to be a containment unit the size of a small car, glowing with an eerie blue-white light. That's it, Ben whispered. The power source. Following the platform was a command vehicle, more sophisticated than the others, with communication arrays and scanning equipment visible on its exterior. Tactical analysis, Rook murmured. 24 guards visible. Mixed forces, incursion, forever night, and temporal troops. Heavy weapons. The command vehicle has 4 operators inside. Just as we thought, Ben said. Ready? Julie and Rook nodded, tension evident in their postures. Okay. On my signal. Ben watched as the convoy reached the precise spot they'd chosen, a narrower section where the ceiling dropped slightly, creating a natural bottleneck. Now. Ben transformed into Big Chill, phasing through the catwalk and descending toward the convoy. Simultaneously, Rook fired his modified proto-tool, sending an electromagnetic pulse toward the lead vehicles. The EMP hit first, disabling the front and rear transports and temporarily disrupting the convoy's electronics. In the confusion, Big Chill swept down, freezing the weapons of the guard contingent nearest the power source. The element of surprise gave them a crucial advantage. By the time the guards realized they were under attack, Julie and Ship had dropped to the tunnel floor, Ship transforming into battle armor around her. Rook followed with precise covering fire, targeting communications equipment to prevent them from calling for backup. Big Chill phased through the command vehicle, freezing control panels and startling the operators inside. Hope you brought winter coats, he quipped, before solidifying just long enough to knock them unconscious with well-placed strikes. Outside, the situation deteriorated into chaos. The guards recovered quickly from their initial surprise, returning fire with coordinated precision that spoke to their professional training. Julie and Ship were pinned down behind a disabled transport, while Rook leapt from position to position, trying to draw fire away from Ben. "We need to move faster," Julie called out. "Reinforcements will be here any minute." Big Chill phased back outside, surveying the battlefield. "Rook, get to the command vehicle and extract the data." "Julie, cover him." Ben transformed again, this time into Humongosaur. The massive dinosaur-like alien charged into the thick of the enemy formation, scattering guards and drawing the majority of fire away from his friends. "Over here, ugly," he taunted, directing his attack specifically toward the temporal troops, the most dangerous opponents with their reality-erasing weapons. Rook used the diversion to slide under weapons fire toward the command vehicle, slipping inside to access its computers. Julie and Ship moved to protect him, Ship forming various weapons to keep enemies at bay. Humongosaur fought ferociously, but with restraint. These weren't robots or mindless drones, but people working for the wrong side. He focused on disabling rather than destroying, using his massive strength to bend weapons and throw vehicles into blocking positions rather than directly attacking soldiers. "Ben." Rook's voice came through his plumber badge. "I have accessed their systems. Downloading prisoner transport data now. Hurry." Ben called back, grunting as energy blasts peppered his thick hide. "This is getting hot." The battle reached a critical point as enemy reinforcements began arriving from both ends of the tunnel. Ben transformed again, this time into Gravitac, using gravitational powers to lift several vehicles and create a barricade. "Rook. Julie. Status. Download complete," Rook reported. "But we have another problem. The power source is unstable. Its containment field was damaged in the fighting. Can we still disable it?" Ben asked, straining to maintain the gravitational barriers. "Negative. Attempting to do so might trigger a catastrophic release of energy." Ben made a split-second decision. New plan. "Julie, have Ship merge with the command vehicle. Rook, prepare for extraction. I'll handle the power source." Without waiting for acknowledgement, Gravitac released the barricade and moved toward the glowing containment unit. The blue-white energy inside pulsed erratically, hairline cracks visible in the protective casing. Another transformation, this time into feedback. The conductoid alien placed his hands on the containment unit, plugs extending to connect with its systems. "This is gonna tingle," he muttered, beginning to absorb the enormous energy contained within. Power unlike anything he'd felt before surged through him, raw, primal energy that felt almost alive. Feedback channeled it, his body glowing brighter as he struggled to contain the massive influx. Meanwhile, Ship had merged with the command vehicle, transforming it into a more powerful escape craft. Rook and Julie climbed aboard. "Ben." Julie called out. "We need to go now." Just a few more seconds, feedback strained, continuing to drain the power source. The containment unit dimmed gradually, the dangerous pulsing subsiding. Enemy fire intensified around him, several blasts striking his body but dissipating into the energy he was absorbing. When the unit finally went dark, Feedback released his connection and leapt toward the transformed command vehicle. "Go, go, go," he shouted as he landed, immediately reverting to human form from the strain. Ship rocketed down the tunnel, enemy fire trailing behind them. Ben collapsed against the interior wall, exhausted from channeling such enormous power. "Did we get what we needed?" he asked weakly. Rook nodded, holding up a data crystal. "Complete prisoner transport logs. And you successfully neutralized the power source." "Not neutralized," Ben corrected. "Absorbed. And I've got to discharge it somewhere safe before I explode." The concern in Julie's eyes was evident as Ship carried them rapidly away from Undertown. "How long do you have?" Ben glanced down at the Omnitrix, which glowed with unusual intensity. "Not sure. But we need to find somewhere isolated, fast." They emerged from the tunnel system into daylight, Ship accelerating away from Bellwood toward the desert beyond. Ben's entire body had begun to glow faintly, energy leaking from him in visible waves. There, he pointed to a distant canyon. "No settlements, no life forms. Drop me there." "Ben, we're not leaving you," Julie insisted. "You have to. That data is our only lead to finding everyone." His voice softened. "I'll be okay. I've handled worse." Julie looked like she wanted to argue further, but Rook placed a restraining hand on her shoulder. "He is right. We cannot risk the intelligence we've gathered." Ship brought them to the canyon edge. Ben staggered out, the glow around him intensifying. "Get clear. At least 5 miles. I'll find you after." "How will you?" Julie began. "I'll find you," Ben repeated firmly. "Now go." Reluctantly, Julie and Rook retreated, Ship carrying them rapidly away from the canyon. Ben watched until they were safely distant, then turned his attention to the energy building within him. He activated the Omnitrix again, transforming back into feedback. The conversion helped stabilize the power temporarily, but he could feel it growing, threatening to overwhelm even feedback's considerable absorption capacity. "Okay," he muttered to himself. "This is gonna hurt." Feedback raised his hands toward the sky, plugs extending upward. He focused on channeling the stored energy, not just releasing it, but directing it harmlessly into the upper atmosphere. Blue-white power erupted from his fingertips in a spectacular pillar of light that shot skyward. The discharge was magnificent and terrible, visible for miles as energy poured from his body in a continuous stream. The very air around him ionized, rocks melted. And the ground beneath his feet turned to glass. When the last of the energy finally dissipated, Ben collapsed to his knees, reverting to human form. The Omnitrix sparked and sputtered, its surface hot to the touch. "Omnitrix status report," he gasped. "System overload," the device responded in a distorted voice. "Recharge cycle initiated. Transformation functions temporarily disabled." "Great," Ben muttered. "Just great." He lay on the glassed ground, staring at the sky as his body recovered from the tremendous strain. Without the Omnitrix, he felt strangely vulnerable, just Ben Tennyson, 18-year-old human, in a world where nearly every powerful being wanted him captured or dead. After what felt like hours but was likely only minutes, he forced himself to his feet and began the long walk out of the canyon. The Omnitrix remained in recharge mode, its usual green glow replaced by a dull red pulsing. By the time he reached the rendezvous point, an abandoned gas station several miles from the canyon, the sun was high overhead. Julie rushed to meet him as he approached, relief evident in her expression. "You're okay," she exclaimed, supporting him as he stumbled slightly. "Mostly," he agreed. "But the Omnitrix is fried. Needs time to recharge after that energy dump." Rook emerged from the gas station, where he'd set up temporary equipment. "How long until it is operational again?" Ben glanced at the device. "Hours. Maybe a day. Hard to tell with this kind of damage." "Then we proceed without it," Rook decided. "The prisoner data is already yielding valuable intelligence." Inside the decrepit building, Rook had created a makeshift command center using equipment salvaged from the command vehicle and components Ship provided. Holographic displays showed maps of Bellwood with highlighted locations. "They've divided the prisoners into 3 categories," Rook explained, pointing to different markers. "Plumbers and military personnel are being held at the downtown detention center, formerly Bellwood Police Headquarters." "Makes sense," Ben nodded. "Secure facility, cells already in place. Powered individuals, including Gwen and others with abilities, are at a specially constructed containment facility beneath Bellwood Dam. Using the water pressure as additional security, Julie observed. Smart. And the third group? Ben asked, though he suspected the answer. Rook's expression tightened. Family members and civilian connections. They are being held at Bellwood Arena, converted into a processing center. Processing for what? Julie wondered. According to these files, they're being prepared for chronodisplacement, whatever that means. Ben's blood ran cold. They're going to do to them what they did to Kevin. Erase them from time. The implication hung heavy in the air. Their loved ones weren't just prisoners, they were scheduled for temporal execution. When? Julie asked quietly. Rook consulted the data. The processing begins tomorrow at dawn. They are waiting for replacement components for the power source we disabled. So we bought them time, Ben reasoned. But not much. There is more, Rook continued. I found the location of their dimensional oscillator array, the device designed to merge the null void with our reality. He zoomed the map to show the old mining complex Vulcanus had mentioned. Detailed schematics appeared, revealing a massive machine under construction beneath the surface. It is nearly complete, Rook said grimly. Without the power source, they cannot activate it immediately, but they will likely find an alternative within days. Ben studied the information, mind racing with possible strategies. We need to prioritize. First, we rescue our people. Then we destroy that machine. Ben, Julie said gently, we're talking about 3 separate heavily guarded facilities. Even with the Omnitrix at full power, that would be challenging. Without it. I know, he acknowledged. But we don't have a choice. If that dimensional oscillator activates, nothing else matters, Earth becomes ground zero for every criminal in the null void. Rook considered the tactical options. We must focus our limited resources. One facility at a time, beginning with the most vulnerable. Which is? Ben asked. Based on this security data, the arena, where the families are held. It has the fewest specialized containment measures, likely because the prisoners are ordinary humans. My parents are there, Ben realized. And Gwen's family. The temporal displacement is scheduled to begin with that group, Rook added. They are the most immediate concern. Ben nodded decisively. Then that's where we start. Tonight. They spent the remaining daylight hours planning their approach, studying guard rotations and security measures from the stolen data. Without the Omnitrix, they needed to rely on stealth and precision rather than power. As sunset approached, the Omnitrix finally showed signs of recovery, its pulsing shifting from red to yellow. Omnitrix status? Ben queried. Basic functions restored. Transformation capability limited to 10 minutes total before complete recharge required. 10 minutes, Ben repeated. That's all we get. We will make it count, Rook assured him. They made final preparations as darkness fell. Ship transformed into a stealth vehicle, while Rook calibrated his proto-tool for non-lethal takedowns. Ben selected his alien options carefully, knowing he had severely limited transformation time. Remember, he told the others, if something goes wrong, the priority is freeing the prisoners. I'll create a diversion if necessary. We stay together, Julie countered firmly. No heroic last stands. Ben smiled slightly. Yes, ma'am. They approached Bellwood Arena under cover of darkness, ship stealth systems keeping them undetected as they assessed the security perimeter. The normally bright venue was dimly lit, with guard towers constructed at regular intervals and energy barriers visible around the exterior. Temporal soldiers at each checkpoint, Rook observed through binoculars. Forever Knights patrolling the outer perimeter. Incursion forces likely inside. Point of entry? Julie asked. Ben pointed to a maintenance tunnel on the east side. There. Low visibility from guard positions, and the energy barrier looks weakest at that junction. Ship deposited them a safe distance from the perimeter, then transformed into battle armor around Julie. They moved silently through shadows, avoiding searchlights and patrol patterns memorized from the stolen data. When they reached the maintenance tunnel access point, Ben examined the energy barrier blocking their path. "Time to see if the Omnitrix is really working again," he muttered, activating the device. He transformed into Jury Rig, the small, mischievous alien perfect for technical sabotage. "Break, break, break," he cackled quietly, fingers working with incredible speed to rewire the barrier projectors. Within moments, a section of the energy field flickered and died, creating an opening just large enough to slip through. Ben reverted to human immediately, conserving his transformation time. 9 minutes left, he whispered. They entered the maintenance tunnel, moving carefully through the dark passage. Rook took point, Prototool scanning for security measures, while Julie and Ship covered their rear. As they neared the end of the tunnel, voices became audible ahead, guards stationed at the interior entrance. Rook held up a hand, signaling them to stop, then pointed to a ventilation shaft above. Understanding immediately, Ben transformed again, this time into goop. The amorphous alien slithered through the ventilation system, bypassing the guards entirely. Once clear, he reformed on the other side and disabled the interior door controls, allowing Rook and Julie to advance without alerting the guards. Ben changed back to human, now down to 7 minutes of transformation time. They found themselves in the arena's lower service area, amid cleaning equipment and maintenance supplies. According to the facility schematics, Rook whispered, checking his data pad, the processing center is in the main arena floor. Holding cells are in what were formerly locker rooms and training facilities. How many guards? Ben asked. Approximately 40 throughout the facility. But there is something else. Rook's expression grew concerned. Energy readings consistent with the temporal displacement technology are active in the central area. They've started early, Ben realized. We need to move. Now. They made their way upward through service corridors, avoiding patrols when possible, silently neutralizing them when necessary. Ship proved invaluable, adapting to form whatever tools or weapons they needed at each obstacle. When they reached the arena level, they paused at a viewing port to assess the situation. What they saw chilled Ben to the core. The main floor had been transformed into a processing center, with people lined up in groups, moving through stations where they were tagged, scanned, and ultimately led to a central platform. Above that platform hung a device emitting the same purple energy Ben had seen when Kevin disappeared. That's the displacement field, he whispered. They're already running tests. Through the viewing port, they could see civilians being processed, neighbors, teachers, people Ben recognized from everyday life in Bellwood. And at the front of one line, being moved toward the platform, were his parents. Mom, Dad, he breathed, instinctively moving forward before Rook restrained him. We must disable the displacement device first, Rook insisted. Otherwise, we risk them being erased during the rescue attempt. Ben forced himself to think strategically despite the panic rising within him. You're right. The control system, where is it? Rook consulted the schematics. Upper level, former broadcasting booth. Heavily guarded. I'll handle that, Ben decided. Julie, you and Ship focus on freeing the prisoners in the holding areas. Rook, cover the main floor and be ready to assist either of us. The guards will sound the alarm the moment we make our move, Julie pointed out. Then we make it count. Ben checked the Omnitrix. 7 minutes of transformation time remaining. Ready? They nodded grimly. Go. They split up, each heading toward their assigned targets. Ben transformed into Big Chill, phasing through ceilings and walls toward the control booth. The cold-generating phantom moved invisibly past guards, freezing security cameras as he went to limit their surveillance capability. When he reached the control booth, he found it staffed by technicians with forever night guards posted at the entrance. Through the booth's windows, he could see the entire arena floor, hundreds of civilians being processed, the displacement device pulsing ominously. Big Chill phased through the ceiling, remaining invisible as he assessed the control systems. The displacement device was operated from a central console, currently manned by a technician with Incursion body armor but distinctly human features, a collaborator, not a soldier. Ben acted quickly, materializing just long enough to freeze the door shut, trapping the guards outside. Then he fully appeared, arms extended as ice spread across the walls. "Everyone on the floor, now," he commanded, voice echoing with otherworldly menace. The technicians scrambled to comply, terror evident on their faces. The lead operator reached for an alarm button, but Big Chill froze his hand inches from the panel. "I wouldn't," he warned. With the booth secured, Ben approached the main console. The controls were complex, temporal mathematics and displacement coordinates beyond his understanding. But he didn't need to understand them to disable them. He transformed again, this time into Upgrade, merging with the control system. From inside the technology, he could comprehend its function, and more importantly, override it. "Oh no you don't," he muttered as he detected security protocols attempting to lock him out. Upgrade's technological consciousness flowed through the system, disabling the displacement device and simultaneously accessing the arena's public address system. His voice boomed throughout the facility, "Attention everyone. This is Ben Tennyson. The exits are now open. Make your way out immediately. This is not a drill." Chaos erupted on the arena floor as prisoners realized what was happening. Guards rushed to maintain order, but were quickly overwhelmed by the sheer number of civilians pushing toward the exits that Upgrade had remotely unlocked. Meanwhile, Julie and Ship had reached the holding areas. Ship formed breaching tools that Julie used to override door locks, freeing dozens of prisoners from each section. Among them, she found Gwen's parents and others she recognized from Ben's extended family. "This way," she directed them. "Move quickly and stay together." Rook provided critical support on the main floor, using his proto-tool to disable guards blocking the exits. When a squad of Incursion soldiers attempted to seal the main doors, he engaged them directly, his combat training evident as he systematically neutralized the entire group with precise strikes. The operation was proceeding better than they'd dared hope, until a familiar voice cut through the chaos. "Benjamin Tennyson. How predictable." Ben disconnected from the console, reforming as Upgrade to see Albedo standing in the doorway of the control booth, the frozen door shattered behind him. The Galvan in human form smiled coldly, his red eyes glowing with malice. "Breaking in to save Mommy and Daddy," Albedo continued mockingly. "Exactly as our probability matrices predicted." Ben transformed back to human, partly to conserve his remaining transformation time but mostly to face his doppelganger directly. "Your predictions aren't working so well tonight, Albedo. We're taking everyone out of here." "A temporary setback," Albedo conceded. "But one that proves my point to our alliance. Corrupted Paradox insisted we wait until tomorrow, but I knew you'd come tonight. Now he'll see I understand you better than he ever could." "Where is he?" Ben demanded. "Your twisted time walker master." Albedo's smile widened. "Preparing the next phase. We anticipated the power source might be compromised, so alternatives were already in development. Your little victory today changes nothing." "Seems like it changes plenty," Ben countered. "Your alliance is already fracturing. You're making moves without Paradox's approval, proving you don't trust each other." A flicker of annoyance crossed Albedo's face. Tactical disagreements are inevitable in any coalition. But our goal remains aligned, your destruction and the remaking of reality. And what do you get out of it, Albedo? What did Corrupted Paradox promise you? Your Galvan form back. Revenge against Azimuth? Something far greater, Albedo replied. A universe where Galvan potential isn't constrained by Azimuth's timid ethics. Where beings like me aren't trapped in inferior forms because we dared to think beyond artificial limitations. Ben noticed Albedo was gradually maneuvering to block the exit. Below, the evacuation continued, but security forces were beginning to reorganize, slowing the prisoners' escape. "You're being used," Ben said, trying to keep Albedo talking while assessing his options. "Just like Vilgax, just like all the others. Once that dimensional oscillator activates, you think Corrupted Paradox will keep his promises?" "I'm not a fool, Tennyson. I have my own contingencies." Albedo's red eyes narrowed. "But enough talk. Your transformation time is limited. Yes, we know about the Omnitrix's damage. You have perhaps 3 minutes remaining." Ben tensed, ready for attack. 3 minutes is all I need. Albedo laughed. "To defeat me? Perhaps. But not to stop what's coming." With blinding speed, he activated his own Omnitrix copy, transforming into a red version of Humungosaur. The dinosaur alien's massive fist swung toward Ben, who barely managed to dodge. Ben activated the Omnitrix again, transforming into Fast Track. The speedy alien darted around Albedo's attacks, landing rapid strikes that did little damage against the armored hide. "You're choosing the wrong aliens, Ben." Albedo taunted, smashing equipment as he tried to corner his agile opponent. "Speed won't help you here." Fast Track ducked another massive swing. "Wasn't trying to hurt you," he replied. "Just keeping you busy." Through the shattered control booth window, Albedo suddenly noticed what was happening below. Rook had reached the displacement device itself and was attaching explosive charges to its base, while Julie and Ship led the last groups of prisoners toward the exits. "No!" Albedo roared, transforming again, this time into Jetray. The aerodynamic alien shot through the window, diving toward Rook. Ben followed, transforming mid-air into Cannonbolt and rolling into a protective ball that intercepted Albedo before he could reach Rook. The impact sent both aliens crashing into the stands, splintering seats and support beams. "Rook!" Ben called out. "Blow it now." Rook activated the detonator. The displacement device erupted in a controlled explosion, collapsing in on itself as its power core destabilized. Purple energy discharged harmlessly into the air before dissipating completely. Albedo roared in fury, transforming again into a red version of NRG. Radioactive energy blasted from his containment suit, narrowly missing Cannonbolt as Ben rolled away. "You've merely delayed the inevitable," Albedo shouted. "We have contingencies for every setback." Ben transformed once more, his time nearly depleted, into Diamond Head. Crystal structures erupted around him, encasing Albedo's NRG form in a reflective prison that contained his radioactive output. "Maybe," Ben acknowledged, breathing heavily from the exertion. "But today, we win." The Omnitrix timed out, returning Ben to human form as the last of his transformation energy depleted. Below, the arena had nearly emptied, most prisoners successfully evacuated. Rook and Julie were guiding the final groups toward freedom. Albedo's crystal prison began to glow as the NRG form inside intensified its output, threatening to break free at any moment. Ben backed away, knowing he couldn't transform again until the Omnitrix recharged. "Ben," a familiar voice called from behind him. "Duck." Ben dropped instinctively as a blast of energy passed overhead, striking Albedo's prison. The crystal structure didn't shatter, instead, it transformed, reconfiguring into a more secure containment system. Ben turned to see his father, Carl Tennyson, holding what appeared to be a modified Forever Knight weapon. "Dad." Carl Tennyson smiled, looking exhausted but determined. "That won't hold him long. We need to move." "How did you?" Ben began, stunned by his father's unexpected rescue. "Plumber training basics," Carl explained as they hurried toward an exit. "Just because I hung up the badge doesn't mean I forgot everything." Ben stared at his father. "You were a plumber. Since when?" "Long story, son. Let's save it for when we're not in an alien prison break, okay?" They rejoined Sandra Tennyson, Ben's mother, who was helping coordinate the evacuation with surprising efficiency. The family reunion was brief but emotional, cut short by the need to escape before reinforcements arrived. Outside, the freed prisoners were being guided into transport vehicles Rook had secured. Ship had transformed into a massive carrier, already filled with civilians headed for safety. "Where are we taking everyone?" Ben asked as they boarded. "Los Soledad," Rook answered. "The abandoned military base. Its isolation and existing infrastructure make it ideal for a temporary sanctuary." As the convoy departed, Ben looked back at Bellwood Arena. Flames were visible from the upper levels, alarms echoing across the night. They'd struck a significant blow against the enemy alliance, but the war was far from over. "We've got thousands of people to protect now," he realized aloud. "And still 2 more facilities to breach if we want to free everyone." "One victory at a time, Ben," his mother said gently. "Today, you saved lives. That matters." The journey to Los Soledad took hours, with the convoy taking circuitous routes to avoid detection. When they arrived, the former military base stood quiet and abandoned, perfect for their needs. As dawn approached, Ben sat alone on the roof of one of the buildings, watching the horizon lighten. The Omnitrix was slowly recharging, its color gradually shifting back toward normal green. Footsteps behind him announced Julie's arrival. She sat beside him, offering a bottle of water. "Your parents are amazing," she said after a moment. "Your dad took charge of setting up security, and your mom's organizing food and medical care for everyone." Ben smiled slightly. "Apparently there's a lot I didn't know about them. How's the Omnitrix?" He glanced at the device. "Better. Still not 100%, but getting there." They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sunrise. Finally, Ben spoke again. "I keep thinking about what Albedo said, that they have contingencies for every setback. What if no matter what we do, they're always 3 steps ahead?" Julie considered this. "Then we do something they can't predict. Something even a time walker couldn't see coming." "Like what?" "I don't know yet," she admitted. "But we're resourceful. And now we have thousands of people who've seen what they're up against, people who might have skills or knowledge we can use." Ben nodded slowly. "You're right. We're not alone in this fight anymore." Below, Los Soledad was coming to life as former prisoners organized themselves into functional groups. Ben could see his parents working alongside Gwen's family, setting up command structures and living arrangements. People helping people, humanity at its best even in crisis. "We need to check on the other facilities," he said, returning to strategist mode. "Find out if our attack triggered increased security at the dam or police headquarters." "Rook's already on it," Julie assured him. He sent reconnaissance drones to both locations. A commotion from the main yard caught their attention. People were gathering around a new arrival, a vehicle Ben didn't recognize at first. As they watched, the door opened and a familiar figure stepped out. "Is that?" Julie began. "Grandpa Max," Ben confirmed, already on his feet and moving toward the stairs. They rushed to the yard, where Max Tennyson was being welcomed by the gathered refugees. He looked battered but unbowed, his plumber uniform torn and dirty. "Grandpa!" Ben called out, pushing through the crowd. Max's face lit up at the sight of his grandson. They embraced tightly, the elder Tennyson's strength still evident despite his ordeal. "How did you escape?" Ben asked when they finally separated. "I had help," Max replied, turning to gesture toward the vehicle he'd arrived in. Emerging from the driver's side was a figure Ben had feared he might never see again, Kevin Levin, looking somewhat disoriented but very much alive. "Kevin!" Ben exclaimed, moving to greet his friend with a firm handshake that turned into a brief hug. "I thought you were gone, erased from time." Kevin grimaced. "Not erased. Just, displaced. Ended up 2 days in the future, right in the middle of a plumber convoy being transferred to the downtown facility. Talk about lucky timing. How did you find Grandpa Max?" I didn't, Kevin corrected. He found me. I was trying to figure out what happened when alarm systems went crazy. Apparently your arena breakout caused quite the distraction. Max here was already working on an escape plan. Max nodded. When the guards deployed to handle your situation, we made our move. Managed to free about 30 plumbers, though most scattered to establish resistance cells elsewhere. This is amazing, Ben said, hope surging. With more plumbers and your leadership, Grandpa, we can start fighting back for real. Max's expression turned serious. It's not that simple, Ben. The Alliance is accelerating their plans. They're bringing in something new, something big. What do you mean? While I was imprisoned, I overheard guards talking about Project Kronos. They're constructing a temporal amplifier to power the dimensional oscillator, replacing the energy source you destroyed. Ben's newfound optimism dimmed. How long do we have? Days. Maybe less. Max looked around at the gathered refugees. We need to consolidate our forces, free the remaining prisoners, and strike at their main facility before the amplifier comes online. Rook approached, tablet in hand. I may have information relevant to our situation. He displayed surveillance footage from the dam facility. Security has indeed been increased at both remaining detention centers. But I also detected unusual activity at the mining complex. The footage showed massive equipment being moved into the complex, components that looked similar to the displacement technology from the arena, but on a much larger scale. That's it, Ben realized. The temporal amplifier Grandpa mentioned. Kevin studied the footage. That's way big-sized tech. Whatever they're building, it's meant to affect a massive area. How do we stop something that big? Julie wondered. Ben's expression hardened with determination. The same way we always do. Together, with everything we've got. As the group began planning their next moves, a strange sensation caught Ben's attention. The air several feet away seemed to shimmer and distort. Like heat waves on asphalt. Everyone tensed, ready for a potential attack. Instead, a familiar blue portal opened, and through it stepped Professor Paradox, the real one, looking significantly recovered from his earlier weakened state. Apologies for the dramatic entrance, he said cheerfully. But I do believe we're running short on time, rather ironic, considering my usual circumstances. Professor! Ben exclaimed. You're back to normal. More or less, Paradox agreed, examining his repaired timepiece. Sufficient recovery to be of assistance, at any rate. What's happening with your evil future self? Gwen asked, having joined the group. Recovering as well, unfortunately. Paradox's expression grew serious. And most displeased about your successful rescue operation. He's accelerating the final phase, the temporal amplifier will be online within 24 hours. Then we attack tonight, Max decided. Hit them before they're ready. Paradox shook his head. I'm afraid a direct assault would fail. The mining complex is too well defended, and my counterpart is expecting such a move. Then what do you suggest? Ben asked. The Time Walker smiled mysteriously. Something unexpected, of course. Something even a being who can see potential futures wouldn't anticipate. Which is? Kevin prompted impatiently. A temporal reversion bomb, Paradox announced. A device capable of resetting a localized area to its state from a previous time, effectively erasing all changes made. You want to turn back time? Ben asked skeptically. In a manner of speaking, yes. The device would revert the mining complex to its state from 1 week ago, before construction of the oscillator began. Everything inside the affected radius would reset, technology, structures, even people. Is that even possible? Gwen wondered. With the right components, yes. Paradox looked meaningfully at Kevin. Including certain artifacts stolen from the quantum containment facility. Kevin's eyes widened in recognition. A Gregor's old tech. The pieces Sunder took during the initial attack. Precisely. If we could retrieve those artifacts and combine them with elements of my own temporal technology, we could create a device capable of undoing my counterpart's work. And where are these artifacts now? Max asked. Still in transit, Paradox replied. My counterpart deemed them too valuable to keep at any single location, so they're being moved between secure facilities on a rotating schedule. Ben's mind raced with possibilities. So we intercept the artifacts, build this temporal bomb, and use it to reset the mining complex before the amplifier goes online. That's the general idea, Paradox confirmed. Though I should warn you, my counterpart will be protecting those artifacts most diligently. He understands their potential as well as I do. When's the next transport? Kevin asked. Paradox checked his timepiece. Approximately 6 hours from now. The artifacts will be moved from a secure vault beneath the Bellwood Museum to the dam facility. Then we have 6 hours to plan the perfect heist, Ben decided. And this time, we're bringing everything we've got. As the group dispersed to prepare, Paradox pulled Ben aside once more. Benjamin, there's something you should know about the coming confrontation. What is it? The Time Walker's expression was uncharacteristically grave. My counterpart believes you are the linchpin, the one variable he cannot fully control. He will stop at nothing to remove you from the equation. I'm used to people trying to kill me, Ben replied with forced lightness. It's not just about killing you, Paradox corrected. He wants to erase you, not just from reality, but from possibility itself. To create a universe where Ben Tennyson never existed. The weight of that statement settled heavily on Ben's shoulders. Can he do that? With the completed temporal amplifier, yes. Which is why we must ensure it never becomes operational. Ben nodded, determination hardening his resolve. Then we'd better get to work. The next few hours passed in a flurry of preparation. Los Soledad transformed from a refugee camp into a resistance headquarters. Rescued plumbers established communications with hidden cells across Bellwood. Former prisoners with relevant skills volunteered for the operation. Ben's parents revealed more of their past, explaining how they'd stepped back from active plumber duty when Ben was born, wanting to give him a normal childhood. That plan had obviously gone sideways when a 10-year-old Ben found the Omnitrix, but they'd respected Max's decision to guide their son into heroism rather than shield him from it. As the time for the heist approached, the core team gathered for final briefing. The plan was complex but solid: intercept the transport at a vulnerable point in its route, extract the artifacts, and withdraw before reinforcements could arrive. The transport will be heavily guarded, Rook cautioned. Our intelligence suggests Kyber will personally oversee security. That's why we're bringing our own heavy hitters, Ben replied, gesturing to the assembled team that included not just their usual members but additional plumber specialists Max had recruited. The Omnitrix had finally returned to full power, its familiar green glow restored. Ben felt whole again with its functionality restored, though his brief time without transformations had reminded him that his human ingenuity was often his greatest strength. Everyone clear on their roles? Max asked the team. Nods all around. The plan assigned each person to specific tasks. Ben would lead the main assault team to disable the transport. Rook would handle technical security systems. Kevin and Julie would extract the artifacts. Gwen, newly rescued from the dam facility during a smaller operation, would provide magical support. Max would coordinate from a mobile command post. Paradox would monitor for temporal interference from his counterpart. As the team moved to their positions, Ben found Julie preparing ship for the operation. Ready for this? He asked. She nodded, a hint of tension visible beneath her determined expression. As ready as anyone can be for stealing ancient alien tech from a squad of supervillains. Ben smiled slightly. Just another Tuesday for Team Tennyson. Is that what we're calling ourselves now? Better than the Ben 10 show, like the media used to say. Their moment of levity was interrupted by Kevin announcing it was time to move out. The heist team boarded their vehicles, nondescript on the outside but heavily modified with plumber tech on the inside. As they departed Los Soledad, Ben gazed out at the gathering darkness. Somewhere out there, corrupted Paradox was watching, planning, anticipating their moves. But for the first time since this crisis began, Ben felt they might have a real chance. They had knowledge. They had resources. Most importantly, they had something worth fighting for, not just survival, but a future where time itself wasn't weaponized by a corrupted guardian with godlike power. The transport route took the artifacts through downtown Bellwood, now eerily transformed into an occupied zone. Villain forces patrolled streets, checkpoints restricted movement, and propaganda broadcasts played continuously. The resistance convoy separated, taking different approaches to the intercept point, an underpass where the transport would be briefly vulnerable. Ben's vehicle, containing the main assault team, positioned itself on an overlooking bridge. Transport approaching, Rook reported over the comm system. Estimated arrival at target zone in 3 minutes. Ben checked the Omnitrix, cycling through alien options mentally. Everyone in position. Affirmative responses came from all teams. Below, the first signs of the transport convoy appeared, scout vehicles followed by armored trucks. In the center was a specialized containment vehicle, its design clearly meant for highly sensitive cargo. That's our target, Ben confirmed. Rook, status on security systems. Scanning, multiple layers detected. Exterior motion sensors, energy field around the primary container, and biometric locks keyed to specific individuals. Can we bypass them? With difficulty, but yes. Ship's adaptive capabilities should prove sufficient. Ben watched the convoy approach the underpass. On my mark. 3, 2, 1, go. He transformed into Gravitac, immediately using gravitational powers to lift the bridge's concrete barriers and drop them onto the road, blocking the convoy's path. Simultaneously, other team members activated EMP devices that disabled the transport's communications. The convoy screeched to a halt as Ben's team descended from the bridge. Guards poured from the vehicles, weapons raised, a mix of Forever Knights, Incursion soldiers, and the mysterious temporal something went wrong with this response, please try again. Write the continuation of the story. I want the next chapter now. The end. Thank you for watching this video. Please be sure to subscribe to our channel and like this video.